Hi grade 5s, today we're looking at the properties of metals, which is on page 62 of your textbook. Now you might have noticed around you there's many different things made of metals. Just as an example, we have a metal spoon here, we have a screw made from metal, I have a 5 Rand coin, and I have this pot. So there's many things around us that we use in our daily lives that are made from metal, and they are specifically made from metal because of the properties that metal has. Now properties is like characteristics. So if I look at characteristics of myself, a characteristic is something that makes me me. So I am short, I am female, I am a teacher. Those are all characteristics of myself. So if we look at properties or characteristics of metals, these are the ones that stand out. So if we want to make this pot, for example, we won't make it with glass or rubber or fabric because we need something that is hard, that can go up to a higher temperature, and so on. So we choose the substance that we use to make something based on its characteristics. So let's have a look at the properties of metals. First of all, it's strong. So this spoon is strong. If I drop it, it won't break. If I drop it very far down, like a couple of stories, it might bend, but it won't break because metal is strong. Next, metal is hard. So when we want something to not be able to break or bend, when it has to be something hard, we will choose metal to make that thing. Number 3, it is shiny. So that's why we use metals for jewelry, for example, because it's nice and pretty and shiny. And sometimes it becomes a little bit dull, like this spoon. It's a little bit old by now, but if I rub it nicely, it will become shiny again. So for example, people make jewelry like bangles, maybe from stainless steel because it doesn't rust. And over time it becomes a little bit dull, but if you rub it nicely with a cloth, it becomes shiny again. Okay, number 4 is malleable. Now malleable means it can be bent or beaten into shape. So that means if I take a metal and I hit it with a hammer or something, I can form it into a shape that I want. Now mostly things are made with metal by heating the metal up to melt it, and then it's poured into a specific mold to get that shape. So this screw, for example, was probably made that way because it's so small, it's got so many little details. I can't beat it into this shape. But if I want to, I can beat and hammer a metal into a specific shape. In the olden days, for example, they used to make swords that way. Then when they were fighting in the wars and there were no big machines and fancy tools to make things like swords, they would take the metal, heat it up in a fire and beat it until they got the shape that they wanted. Number 5 is ductile. Ductile means it can be stretched out very, very thinly. So this is my cell phone charger and it's covered by plastic to cover the wire. But if I break this plastic open, I will see many little thin copper wires. And that is what ductile means. Ductile means metal can be drawn out very, very thinly to make something like wire. The last property is that it melts at a high temperature. So like I said before, we can melt metal to pour it into a mold to make something specific, but it has to be in a very, very high temperature to melt. So if we make a pot, for example, from a metal, and we cook something inside the pot, whatever we cook, like water or food, cooks at a certain temperature, and then the metal that the pot is made of will not melt at that temperature. It will only melt at a much higher temperature. So that allows us to cook whatever is inside the pot without the pot melting or anything happening to the pot. Okay guys, I hope that makes sense. I hope you understand the properties of metal. Remember, I'm just a WhatsApp away if there's anything you struggle with. Have a great day. Be blessed.